Go ahead.
We should make them shoot for it next time.
That's great. We got a whole gym and tubes over there. Love it.
Well, Jake, when the offseason ended, you had a staff to hire, you had a roster to evaluate. How did you prioritize what you needed to do once the season ended?
Yeah, a lot of change. I think the landscape of college basketball now warrants that, specifically in the months of April and May. Gary, you want to help? Sorry, you want to help? Will Buford was out there. Yeah, trying to let him in. He gets precedent in here when he wants. So. No, I think for me, Adam, when I was sitting there and making decisions and trying to figure out like what's the proper order of everything that needed to happen. What's up, Will? It wasn't so much about like this checklist, but it was more just like attacking each day and trying to get something, be productive, essentially. Certainly the staff component was important and getting some help, but you couldn't not recruit, roster management, all those things. So it was a blur. People have asked me a lot, like, okay, what's the biggest difference? There's certainly added, stress, pressure, whatever it may be, but there's also, like, I'm having a blast. It's been a lot of fun. I'm excited about this group, really excited about our staff. We can talk in more detail about that when you guys are ready. Excited about our roster. Like, it's been a fun spring.
To the roster, how much did you want to change things up, and how much did things change? I guess, how much did you prepare for how the roster ended up becoming, and how much did you have to adapt to as things progress?
Yeah, you have to be able to adapt. We certainly wanted to, I think, structure the roster that fit a little bit more the style that we want to play moving forward. But yeah, you have to adapt, and you can't. I think the thing is, you can't take things personal. You got to be able to move on quickly. This is the Ohio State University. There's a lot of really, really good players that want to be a part of this program, and that's certainly a perk of being here. But adapt is a good way to put it, and you got to be able to do it quickly.
Speaking of that play style, obviously we talked a lot last year about playing up tempo, that increased aggression and pace, and playing with depth, those sorts of things. But I think one of the things that stood out in this transfer cycle was the versatility of a lot of the guys you added. Sean Stewart, Aaron Bradshaw, Michi, Micah. These are guys that can do a lot of things on the basketball court. How important of a factor was that in your transfer portal additions?
Yeah, versatility is important. I think it makes us harder to guard and it allows us to be a little more creative defensively. So we were intentional about that. And the other thing we were intentional about, all four of those guys were in the NCAA tournament and won at a certain level last year. So that was something I'm really excited about, their experience. I mean, Micah played in a national championship game 2 years ago when on a Sweet 16 run. Michi's, helped lead South Carolina to a best season they've had in a long time, and Aaron and Sean for being young players to be able to get NCAA tournament experience is really valuable. So I love that component of it too. Certainly the versatility, but yeah, I think the winning is important as well.
And then, as it looks right now, one scholarship left open. What are the plans for that spot?
Yeah, the plans are to fill it. I can't get into too much detail on that right now, but yeah, the plans are we're trying to fill that and being really intentional about that.
You mentioned staff changes. Can you kind of go through what you liked and kind of how each guy fits into your bigger plan that you added?
Yeah, so if you look at our staff, much like the guys we brought in through the portal, they're all coming from winning programs, and they've won at a high level, and I think that's really valuable. Joel coming from NC State and the run that they went on, his experience will be valuable for us. Jamal coming off really, I guess there isn't much arguing, the best 3-year stretch in the history of the school, and certainly his experience in the Big Ten was important. Taylor, Northwestern, unbelievable success, both in our league and in the NCAA tournament, best really in the history of the school as well. And then, Luke being at Baylor and working for Scott Drew, who's someone I know and trust, and seeing how that program is run and how that's certainly going to be valuable for us. And then, I think Dave Dickerson, who's certainly a familiar name around here, he was on the last staff that went to a Final Four here and won Big Ten championship. I love that about him, but also for me, like his experience being a sitting head coach and for him to leave that and come back, I think says a lot about who he is and how he feels about this place. So I love the guys that we've been able to bring in. And when I was going through the hiring process, there were a couple things that I was just trying to stay committed to making decisions based upon, do I think it's like helping us move towards winning a championship? And then are these guys committed to helping young men grow, which is something I'm really passionate about. Like that had to be aligned for this to work. And then you're putting a staff together is much like building a team. You're looking for strengths, weaknesses, how they complement each other. Chemistry is really, really important. So there was a lot that went into it, certainly.
You just kind of went through it, but varying levels of experience. Taylor is recent into this. Some guys, Dave has been doing that. You as a first-time head coach, how much did you want to have that different levels to kind of, especially different guys who have been doing different things, to kind of bring new ideas and whatnot to it all?
Yeah, it was really important. Dave was someone I knew right away that I would be fortunate to have him as a part of our staff because, he and I had a pre-existing relationship, and it's one to which he can coach me a little bit too at times if I need it. So I'm excited about that. But what he's seen throughout his career, I think is really, really important for us, and he can lean back on different experiences he's had and how that can certainly serve our players well, but also our staff well. And then, again, I think anytime you hire, you're also to some degree hiring guys who are bringing a knowledge from their respective programs, and I think we hit it out of the park, in regards to that. So I think it's great. Taylor, he hasn't been an assistant for an extended period of time, but man, was he a good player in this league, and he's won in this league as an assistant coach, which I think is really important. And there's certainly, in college basketball today, there's a relatability factor that's critical, and I think him still being able to get out onto the court and spar with guys a little bit will be valuable. But I'm really, really excited. I can't even begin to tell you how excited I am about this staff. I think we there's already a natural chemistry that's been forming, and it's been good to see.
Chris did offensive coordinator, sort of defensive coordinator. Are you planning to set up similarly, or have you kind of already put in place how the roles of each guy in terms of on-court stuff?
Yeah, it'll be similar to some extent. It's not just working for Holt, but the guys that I've worked for throughout my career all ran their programs similar to that. I think there's a great deal of value in that. Specifically in year one, I'll probably maybe have a little stronger voice in multiple aspects of that, but I think also making sure that I create room for our staff to utilize their strengths will be important. So the structure will be somewhat similar. There will be some differences and changes, and a lot of it is to kind of fit my strengths and weaknesses too. So I want to still be on the court. I want to still be a part of skill development. Like that's important to me. That's why I hope this goes quickly so I can get back onto to the gym today. But no, we have some really, really great personnel on our staff. They got to be able to, utilize those strengths certainly, and that's my job to make sure they can do that.
Jake, do you find it crazy that you've only been at this since February, as fast as it goes? And what's been the most challenging part of the adjustment?
I think making a lot more decisions. As an assistant coach, you kind of have the luxury to most all your ideas are really good, because part of the time you don't even get to know if they would have worked or not. You just get to assume, right, that they were great ideas and you got hindsight and things. But I think that's been the biggest difference for me personally is there's a lot of, you're making decisions just constantly. And the other thing that's shifted for me a little bit is just in, again, full transparency, my mind doesn't shut off. not that you really had a lot of time as an assistant coach to, like, you didn't get a ton of time off. What's up, Key? But I just find myself constantly thinking about what's next and thinking about our players, thinking about our staff, who's trying to relocate, thinking about our players, how we're going to build chemistry. Like, it's just like my mind just doesn't stop. So that's been an adjustment too. I feel like I've kind of settled in there to that component a little bit. But that was different, starting off those two things.
I'm wondering on that note, how, not just you, but all of your other, friends in the coaching community with the way the sport is now, how do you even have a plan for the offseason? Because I got to imagine some of the guys that you brought in, speaking of the transfer portal, they're getting, recruited by 10 or 20 other schools like you that want them really bad. And what is that process like of not shutting your mind off? Oh, this guy is going to pick another spot. We got to go right back to the drawing board. How busy is that? How hectic is it? Does it look like, you've got the marker board up there with 1 million names written on it and you're crossing them off left and right when they go somewhere else? How does that work nowadays?
Yeah, it's, you have to be able to adapt. I think we started off with that. There's, it's hard, the days of like having a true understanding of what your roster is going to look like year to year, a year in advance. I think those days are mostly over. There may be certain years where you have a better feel for that than others, but I choose to kind of look at it as a positive. It allows us the flexibility every offseason to be able to like bring in the right pieces. And the hard part in recruiting, specifically the spring, is you're making decisions that are really, really important for your team in a short period of time. So it's a significant commitment to make sure you're evaluating and certainly their game, but probably the harder part is evaluating who they are. And so for us in this program, we're going to constantly like really, really dig deep to find the right guys. And I feel like we've done that. Like, I feel like we've got guys who, care about winning. Like Michi Johnson wants to win at Ohio State. That's really, really important to him. It's probably the biggest reason he decided to come back, and I love that. That's so valuable for us. But the difference is now I think we have to be, as a staff, even more intentional and spend even more time building relationships with our guys, solidifying that chemistry, both that crosses that line of player and coach. And then, like being creative of how we can create, stronger chemistry in what is now a shorter period of time. And you just got to find a way to do it between when they get on campus to the time the season starts. And honestly, it's going to continue to grow throughout the season. So, but you can't, like, I think the days of summer kind of, we'll be a little more laid back, or it might, can't do that anymore. Like, we got to build a great chemistry. We have great guys. I think we're going to be able to do that.
By the way, how cool was it getting the call to throw the first pitch out at a Guards game? And do you want that one back?
Yeah, so someone gave me the advice, and it's probably been 25 years since I stood on a pitching mound, and someone gave me the advice of, hey, you have to aim high. Now I was a little too casual, I'll admit that. I wish I could have that back and fire it a little harder. But I thought when it left my hand, I was like, that's straight on. That's going to be good. And here it was short. So I had some people close to me who gave me a rough time for that. But no, it was an unbelievable experience. I think the best part was being up in Cleveland, seeing the reception and the love for Ohio State and for our program. That was the best part. Certainly standing out there was something I'll never forget, but I think more importantly, just the excitement around the program and certainly the love for Ohio State and that part of the state was awesome.
You mentioned how the game has changed and how you can't look too far forward. How far into the future can you look now? And then how far in the future did you look in the first couple of years as a coach? And how much has that changed?
Yeah, I think it's changed. I think, it's changed how you structure your roster, and it impacts recruiting, certainly. We're going to always, I anticipate us always having a balance of bringing in, high school players and complementing the roster with transfers and certainly impactful transfers. But I just it's hard for me to see a time right now, the way the landscape is today, of the days of having like 5-man freshman classes. You may have some outlier years where that's necessary, but I think more importantly, you're constantly evaluating, trying to project the impact guys can have that year, that next year. So if it's freshmen who can do it, great. If it's you need transfers for that, fine. But we still want, like, development is really, really important to me. It goes back to that growth I talked about. Like, we still want guys who can develop in our program. And I think we got some guys on our roster you're going to see that, certainly from last year to this year, but even throughout the course of this season, and ultimately a couple guys who from this year to next year.
And in that vein, what do you need? What are you expecting from your freshmen this year?
Yeah, well, it's going to be a transition, certainly. I think it's a transition every year. It doesn't matter how talented you are as a freshman. I like our 2 freshmen a lot. I think both of them are going to be able to provide some real value for this team. What that looks like, come November and ultimately, right, maybe January, because it'll be different as they grow. That's to be determined, but both those guys love Ohio State, which I think is really valuable, and both of them have won in high school. And Colin, having been in the state really final or semifinals for 4 out of 4 years it's unbelievable. It's awesome, and it's great. And then Junie playing in the what is probably the best high school league in the country, and having the success that he had this year, that's going to serve him really well. So I think those 2 will be valuable for us certainly this year.
Jay, getting Bruce back, 2-time captain, is huge. As a new coach, too, to bridge the gap from the old era to the new era, how much does that help to have a guy like that, and how is he leading this new group so far?
Yeah, I think it's less about maybe bridging this gap, because this is new, and we've completely turned the page, and it's going to be different. I think, listen, I've said this before. I think Holt's a really good coach. I think he's going to have a ton of success at DePaul, and I've learned a lot from him. But we have to completely turn the page. This is an entirely new program. There's certainly some guys who were part of this, program in years past, but even for them, this is a fresh start. This is entirely new. So I don't know necessarily bridging the gap, but Bruce is a really good player, and he's about all the right stuff. So anytime you specifically first year head coach, you get to have a guy like that on your team, that's gives you a little peace and comfort, because he really is, he exemplifies, kind of what I want to be about as a coach, what I want our program to be about, and just an everyday work as hard as he can, keep getting better kind of guy.
With the front court players you brought in, Sean Stewart and Aaron Bradshaw, highly recruited guys out of high school, had some success year 1, didn't play a whole lot. How can they take a jump in year 2 for guys like that? They play in the front court, didn't get to play a lot, dealt with some stuff. How can they make a jump going into this year?
Yeah, I think, one, their experience and knowing what college basketball now looks like and feels like will be valuable. I think if you look at the last 5 to 10 years, even maybe going back a little bit before some of the COVID year stuff, you saw really talented freshmen who stayed into their sophomore year. You saw guys kind of across the board make significant improvement. So both those guys work really hard, and that's why I'm confident they're going to be able to make a jump. But I also love the fact that we have a veteran backcourt, and I think that's an important component too, that will help the transition from them going from maybe a more limited role to a significantly increased role. They're very talented players. 2 McDonald's All-Americans, on our roster, I think is certainly a great thing for us. But they don't have to do it by themselves. We got some really good veterans, in that backcourt that I think will help that transition for them.
Yeah, you mentioned before when you were in Cleveland how you got a pretty warm reception. So I'm just kind of wondering, in Columbus, what has the response been to with fans? Do you notice maybe when you're walking around in town, more people recognize you and say hi? What has kind of been the response from Buckeye Nation fans as you as men's basketball coach?
Yeah, it's been great. It's different. It's different, but I tell you what, I love how passionate our fan base is, and I love how much they care. And so people coming up and saying how excited they are for next season and our program, and people who have told me they've gotten season tickets who didn't have them before, like that stuff's great. Now, when I got my few coffee spots I like to hit in the morning, like that, it's changed. I can't sneak in there anymore, sneak in and out, which is fine. I mean, I've met some great people. I've heard some really awesome stories, people who have been lifelong Buckeye fans or people who have moved into the state and are now Buckeye fans. But the reception's been great. But I think it's less about me and more just about the excitement surrounding our program. And so I've enjoyed that. But yeah, it's different, but it's all good.
With that kind of stuff, like you mentioned how it's different, like do you reach out to maybe other coaches, like men's basketball coaches or women's basketball coaches, and kind of ask like how to deal with all that and just deal with being head coach in general, or is it still kind of you're just learning on the fly?
Yeah, no, I have. I'm fortunate to have some great mentors in this profession, some who have been a head coach for a long time, some who haven't been a head coach very long. And I think leaning on them and asking questions is really important. But the common denominator is just like the common advice is be yourself. And I kind of like some of my morning routines, and I don't want to change those. And I thought for a time, like maybe, well, do I need to do something different or change? Like, just want to be myself. And I like I'm a foodie, so I like to go out to eat. I like to do all that, and I don't want to change that. And I think it's a privilege to be in this position, and part of it is being accessible to fans and people who support our program. So it's been a lot of fun.
I got a list of about 20 questions here.
Great,
so
Steve. Yeah,
if you would
appreciate
just settle in for a minute. For starters, the NCAA paradigm is all shifting with schools to be able to pay players. And I know currently collectives are kind of what's used as that mechanism. It's just in the first few weeks of knowing what's going to happen in the future, but do you envision a day where you have to be like a salary cap person to figure out this is the amount of money we have and this is what we have to do with it? As a coach going into this for the first time, this is uncharted territory. Just your overall thought of the direction, not knowing where it's going just yet, I guess.
Yeah, well, I'll say this. I hope the foundation is still involved in some capacity because they've been great, for our program. So I'm really appreciative of the work that they've done and the way that they've, connected our program to the community in a way that probably has never been done before. So I hope that still exists to some degree. It's hard to anticipate what it's going to look like, but I say this with great confidence. Certainly the foundation that Gene Smith has laid. But as Ross transitions to leading us, like I'm very confident we're going to be leaders in this space, and that's exciting. And listen, I think it's valuable for us that I haven't been a head coach for a long time. I'm not set in these certain type of ways that maybe the way it used to be. I'm old school in nature in some things. But I'm excited about where, the landscape is heading. And I'm excited about, Ohio State helping lead that way. So we'll see what happens. There's not a lot of details yet. Just we all know there's going to be a lot of change. So we'll embrace it and see where we're at here maybe this time next year.
The way you've set up the roster, it looks like there's, other than Bruce, who you would figure, one would think is going to be very important given everything he's done in 2 years. The other 4 spots, it looks like you've got 2, maybe 3 guys lined up to compete for each of those spots, and nothing's really set. Just that had to be deliberate to figure out how can we breed competition at these other spots. Is that what you looked at when you put the roster together, I guess? Absolutely.
We need talented players here at Ohio State, and the more talented pieces you have, I think the higher the ceiling of the team. Now, certainly role definition and chemistry and all of those things are going to be really, really important factors. But I love that there's a healthy competition going into this season, you know, based upon the way our roster's been able to shape up. And, you know, I go back to like some of Thad's teams, like that was the way some of his teams were. Like you had, you know, I think back, just actually talked to Deshaun Thomas this morning and think of the freshman year, you know, he had. And he was certainly a, you know, I was pretty sure he was a McDonald's All-American if I remember correctly. But there was a lot of that competition. So I think it's great, and we got competitive guys. So it'll be a good thing for us.
You touched on Stewart and Bradshaw a little bit. Those two in Parks. How do you kind of, looks like 3 guys for 2 spots there. Just how do you kind of envision that shaking out? The best players are going to play, obviously, but just what's your thought about early on how those roles might shake out?
I feel like you got some thoughts on that, Steve, based on this.
I don't. I'm good with it.
No, listen. I think again, the versatility we spoke about earlier is going to be important, and it allows us a great deal of lineup flexibility. You know, where we can shift guys around. You know, I've challenged some guys to really expand their game this offseason and to be able to play multiple positions so that going into, you know, games, we can make some adjustments with our lineups to be able to shift guys to different positions. So I don't know if it's necessarily 2 or 3 guys. It could be 4 or 5 by the end of the summer, Steve. I think that's the exciting part about this team. And a lot of that's going to play out certainly this summer and throughout the fall. And I think it'll, you know, even throughout some of the season.
I guess last thing I'll ask for now, just schedule-wise, is there a game at Texas A&M as a return for this past year? Will there be a home marquee game, so to speak? Any thoughts about that? And the West Coast trips, are they giving you, or trip, are they giving you time before and after to recover and prepare for that? Just those kind of 3 topics, I guess. Texas A&M.
Starting with Texas A&M, yes, we will be returning there. And there's certainly, you know, Coach Williams has got another good team, and he's got a great proven track record, you know, so it'll be a really, really good early test for us on a true road game. So I'm excited about that. We are trying, and I think we're getting close to finalizing another home and home deal that would, you know, be with another high major team. So our preference is to start that at home this year. I think our fans, it's great for our fans to be able to have that. Listen, scheduling, it's hard right now because a lot of these, you know, we reached out to just really tons and tons of teams who would be probably in the last few years considered the top end teams in each respective power conference to try and schedule. But a lot of teams are transitioning from home and homes to neutral site games. And so it's been a challenge, certainly to fill out the schedule. But I think when it's all said and done, you're going to see we're gonna have a tough non-conference schedule, certainly, which is exciting. But yeah, it's that part's been different. It's different now than it was even like 2-3 years ago. In this where a lot of teams are fighting to get these neutral site games. So I would love just, you know, moving forward, I'd love to always be able to have another high major opponent in our gym. I don't know, Steve, if it's going to always be able to work out that way, but our intention is to do that.
Just West Coast,
Yeah, sorry.
What do you kind of come up with in that regard?
So we're going to LA. We know that. As far as how many days are in between each game, what the game before that trip or the game after that trip looks like, we don't know that yet. I think the league is they're really working hard to certainly have a competitive balance and all of that, but find a way that, you know, that helps the student athletes first and foremost the most. We'll get that information more probably, I would imagine, either later this summer or early into the fall. But yeah, what we do know is we are going to LA, which certainly will be a great kind of first West Coast trip for us.
Hey, Coach. Now, you spoke of, you know, having to adapt earlier on. I know you've been a GA before, you know, assistant coach, video coordinator. How has your journey prepared you for the job as the head coach for the Ohio State University?
I've been really fortunate to work with and work for some high level like coaches. And I think I sit here today as almost like a byproduct of being around some just really gifted people. But having started, essentially as I think the formal title back then was student assistant when I first finished playing, to now being head coach and really essentially having worked in every other aspect in between at different time in my career, I believe is really valuable. It helps me see things through a different lens, whether I'm talking to David Egelhoff in the operation space, or I'm talking to Terrence Dials and kind of his role or assistant coaches. So I believe it gives me really good perspective. And so I'm appreciative certainly of the journey, but probably more so the people that I've been able to be around. I mean, when I was video coordinator, I got to sit in Jeff Bowles and his office and listen to him on recruiting calls, or Dave Dickerson, or I've worked for Bryce Drew, played in the NBA. It was just like I think his basketball instincts and his mind is just really gifted. I mean, Holt's ability to put together a culture and lay a foundation there was certainly valuable for me to see. And Thad's ability to connect with players and guys who, probably in other programs wouldn't have made it, but they made it because he was so gifted at connecting with guys and being able to see and experience that. Playing for Homer Drew, who's, a Hall of Famer, and so I'm fortunate to be around some really high level people throughout the course of my career, and I think it'll hopefully serve us well.
Also, too, what are some of the positives that from last season are you guys looking to build upon?
Yeah, well, I think that experience for me validated some things that I had in my mind as to what could work as a head coach. So for me personally, the relationship aspect, I have to be intentional about making sure that those are really, really strong. So I've been asked, okay, that sounds good, right? How do you do that? Well, I think some of it is being really active in recruiting, right? There's a relationship that's formed in recruiting that's really valuable. It's a big reason why I was able to have such good relationships with players when I was an assistant coach. But then it's also being on the court and like sweat equity, like being in the gym with guys. So those two things for me personally, and the responsibilities and the schedule's different, and I acknowledge that I'm not going to be able to do every single workout, but I'm going to be very intentional. My staff is going to help hold me accountable to making sure that I can be in those spaces. I think they're strengths for me, but ultimately it just, that relationship component is so critical, and I thought that was validated down the stretch of the season. I also think we got some validation in playing at a faster tempo. Our tempo was if you break it down into segments, right, our tempo that last stretch was significantly faster. We're not going to be the fastest team. We don't want to play reckless by any means. I don't think you can and win at a high level. You can't be reckless, but we do want to play a little faster and try to not go against a Matt Painter or a Tom Izzo or a Brad Underwood set defense over and over and over again. We want to try to create some turnovers, capitalize on some advantage situations with our pace. So those were things that I think I learned, and also it was in what really was a tough time for our program. Also was reminded of just how passionate and is our Buckeye Nation is, and that was awesome to see. So I'm really excited about, again, the support we've experienced, between kind of then and now, whether it's out in the community or whatever. And I think moving forward, I'm excited to see what that looks like here in our arena.
Coach, how's it going? First off, did you have fun at the memorial yesterday?
I was going to say, I just saw you. Yeah.
That was me.
I did. My dad came down, and he and I got to go out there and spend some time together. So perks of his new retirement, which was in my unbiased opinion, overdue. But
yeah, nice. Speaking of dads, well, Father's Day is coming up, and I know you're about to be a dad again. I guess, how does being a dad make you a better coach? And specifically, how did it change your perspective in coaching when you first became a dad? And how does, with an ever-growing family, make you prepare you better to be a head coach?
Well, I think God knows exactly what you need, and certainly He felt I needed 2 daughters first, which, I think being a girl dad for the first 2, so we have 3 children. My oldest, James, is 6. She's 6 going on like 16. My middle child, Jessa, is now 5, and my son Jackson, my middle child Jessa's 4. My son Jackson is approaching 2 years. But I think having daughters first certainly gave me a different perspective. I have obviously just brothers. My wife has just brothers, so I just assumed we were going to have a boy, but God had other plans. I think it's also, I think just that's helped me connect with guys in a different way because I view it through a different lens sometimes. Now I can view, like I go watch my daughter play soccer and I'm trying to, in my mind, be a parent, right? And no parent can see like unbiasedly, right? There's always a little bit of bias, and I fall victim to that at times. So I think understanding how parents view their children has been valuable. I think, now having our guys come around our family and see me as a husband and a father. They saw me as a husband before, but now they can see me as a father. I think it's helped strengthen, relationships. But I don't know if I ever anticipated we would have 4 kids under 6 years old. If that probably gives you just the fact that our family is able to function, gives you an idea of just how special my wife is. But yeah, family's really, really important to me. Certainly my family, certainly the family our players, come into our program with, but the greater family of this program, like it's families in our locker room. We say family when we break huddles. We did that down the stretch of the season. That's really, really important. You're constantly finding something bigger than yourself to hold on to. We've had some success with that, and we got to keep doing that. And certainly guys being around our families, our staff families, is an important part of it.
Obviously, you can't go out and get a Jamison battle every year in the transfer portal. Do you feel you have enough 3-point shooting on this team?
I think we do. I mean, we'll see. Listen, a big part of it's going to be development. And Jamison came into this, I don't remember off the top of my head, but the last couple years, his career 3-point field goal percentage wasn't near what he finished at this last year. So development's an important part of it. And, I believe we're going to be a program that can help develop guys quickly. Certainly with the staff we've hired, but also the resources we have here at Ohio State, which are top of the line. So I'm excited. The guys we brought in, certainly Michi, I think he's going to be able to be a threat. You got to guard him kind of way out there at times. Junie Mobley, in my opinion, was one of the very best shooters in the country, regardless of class. Bruce, I'm expecting him to take a jump, and he's certainly capable. He's had multiple games where he's made multiple threes. And, I think some of our guys with size, the way we're going to play, there's going to be some more spacing, and there's going to be opportunity for them to shoot. So I like the pieces we have. It's hard to predict. I don't know that anybody could have predicted Jamison was going to go from maybe low 30s to low 40s in a season. And our guys certainly have the permission to do that. We'll say would love for them to do that. But I think we do. I think Devin Royal's a guy who's improved. We worked really hard on that this spring, and he's showing some real improvement in that. So I think we do. It's something we'll monitor certainly, but I'm confident in it.
Do you come into the summer healthy? Is everyone ready to go? Is you able to get workouts and things going?
Yeah. So we're getting started this week, and everybody's ready to go. So that's exciting.
And then just kind of big picture, but as you're sitting here with the trophies behind you and stuff, you've not been shy about talking about wanting to chase championships. You've mentioned that in multiple interviews, and coaches that you've hired have talked about that. Your players have talked about that. Why is it important for you to publicly embrace that in a way that really hadn't been the case around here for a while?
I mean, I appreciate what this program has been, And I got to see it from certainly a very intimate spot when my brother was here. And so we're not going to, like, the standard here in this program is just that. Like, we're not going to lower the standard because maybe it's year one. Like, we'll see what happens this year. You know, there's just because we talk about it doesn't certainly guarantee that we're going to be able to do it. I think we got great pieces. I think we have the personnel to, like, really take a jump this year. But the standard's a standard, and that is competing for championships. That's the way this program has been. That's the way this program's going to be moving forward. We feel a great deal of responsibility to help push that. But like you see guys like Will Buford walking through here, the guys that are going to be coming around here this summer, like that's why I want them around, because they lived it. They walked these halls when they were cutting down nets, and that's what we're striving for. And we're not gonna shy away from that. It certainly doesn't guarantee anything. You know, but I think for our guys to know that, hey, this is where we want to go, we need to, like, there's got to be reminders of that. It'll be hard. We're going to face adversity. But I think just if we can lean back to, like, hey, this is why we're doing it, that's going to help us fight through that adversity.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Good to